The Beyblade Metal series is unfortunately very notorious for wasting its characters. I mean, the show's given us such unique and interesting side characters, only for most of them to be shelved in the same arc where they got introduced. Now, I understand that the series isn't that long and we can't spend a whole lot of time with everyone, but I could go on and on about how different side characters were just left behind, like Ryutaro or Teru, and I could even talk about how the same thing happened to some of our main characters like Yu and Tsubasa. But whether it was a main character or even a minor side character, it doesn't really matter. The fact is, all of the characters who suffered this fate of getting left behind had potential. Otherwise, we wouldn't really care about them getting left behind. I mean, the whole reason we say these characters were wasted is because we truly believed they had more to offer to the story. It could have been something as small as Teru showing up in a Metal Fury tournament, or it could have been something as big as Tsubasa becoming a legendary blader. But whatever it may be, these characters all had something more to offer to the story, big or small. But out of all of these quote-unquote forgotten characters, I'd argue that no one had more to offer than Sora. I've always thought that he was just criminally underutilized, and I'd even argue that out of every character in the Metal series, Sora had the most potential. That's a pretty bold claim, so let's talk about it. Sora was introduced in episode 29, Kenta and Sora, and our first impression of him isn't a great one. He interrupts Kenta's match and boasts about being Jinga's #1 apprentice, which is pretty interesting at first. Was there some sort of hidden subplot that took place off screen where Jinga trained this kid as his protege? No. The kid made the whole thing up after Jinga looked vaguely in his direction as he was surrounded by hundreds of other people. Now, I'll admit the scene in the show does make it look like Jinga did look right at him, but this scene is a flashback being told from Sora's perspective, so I wonder how much of the situation was being twisted by Sora's own conscience and his desire to be noticed by Jinga. But anyways, we get to know him a bit better and he's just a super fan of Jinga. But what's really unique about him is that he also has a Pegasus Beyblade. Now, Jinga's Pegasus is one of the two original Beyblades, and in some forms it's even considered a legendary Beyblade. So I find it kind of strange that he just has this Pegasus Bay and no one really questions it. Especially Kenta. I mean, did he not wonder why this random kid had a Pegasus? Well, I guess it didn't really matter at first anyways, because even though Sora had a Pegasus Beyblade, he was still very weak in his introduction. I'd even say he was on square one as a blader. Basically just a complete beginner on the level of B-Pit regulars, such as Osamu, Takashi, and Akira. But even though he was on that low level, his potential was always through the roof. I mean, we saw tiny glimpses of the strength Cyber Pegasus really had, but Sora just didn't have any control over it at all. This is going to be an assumption. I'd go out on a limb and say that Sora hasn't been Beyblading for very long. I think he's relatively new to Beyblade when he met Kenta, meaning he doesn't have much experience. And for the time he has been battling, he's been trying to become someone who he's not. Seriously, up until he met Kenta, he was just copying Jinga and it wasn't helping him. It was only stunting his growth as a blader. However, everything changed once Kenta inspired him to create his own moves and his own unique style of battle. Only then was Sora able to truly improve as a blader. So Kenta finally set Sora on the path of achieving his potential, and literally the next day, Sora creates a special move. It only took him a day. That's ridiculous. Bladers have to grind to create their first special moves, yet Sora did it in a single day. If that's not crazy potential, I don't know what is. And it's not like the special move he made was weak or even decent. No, this special move was incredibly powerful. Maybe it doesn't seem very impressive compared to Metal Masters and Metal Fury moves, but for the time in Metal Fusion, this move is massive. That's a whole lot of energy Sora created there, and he's only just begun on the path of achieving his potential. I mean, we even see that this move is still an unfinished product as it caused him to self-destruct. He hasn't mastered it yet, but the move is already looking like this. Bro is a generational prospect for the future of Beyblade. But it doesn't stop there. Sora's only other episode comes a little bit later in Metal Fusion, in episode 37, Rock Scorpio's Deadly Poison. We're introduced to a small town which has been overrun by Busujima and his gang. I mean, these guys have taken over the WBBA stadium and they don't play very nice. Kenta befriends some of the locals who are forced to battle here instead of the big WBBA stadium, and then we eventually see Sora, who's running the ones with Busujima. After a few exchanges, Sora loses off a very dirty play. After this, Kenta, Sora, and the locals start training in order to take back their stadium, and once one of their friends is taken by Busujima's gang, they decide it's time to go. Kenta and the group stay behind to battle Busajima's gang members, while Sora goes on ahead to face Busajima himself in a rematch. However, just like the last one, this wasn't going to be a fair match. The stadium's covered in oil, and Scorpio has a special performance tip which allows his Bey to spin completely fine in these conditions. But Sora, on the other hand, isn't so lucky. But despite being at a blatant disadvantage, Sora's holding his own, and this is a pretty even match. This is until the oil lights on fire, I guess from the sparks of the Beyblades clashing. Kenta and the group take notice, but they can't go help. There's just too many of Busajima's gang members standing in their way, and even Kenta can't deal with all the opponents by himself. But then Jinga shows up and beats all of them. So much aura from Jinga here, everyone is terrified. But back to Sora's match, he's still hanging in there despite the conditions, and he's telling Busajima about the Blader's spirit. And right on cue, Jinga shows up again with so much aura. I mean, he's got Sora blushing, Busajima's terrified, but anyways, Jinga uses Stormbringer to make the flames disappear, and then he leaves the rest up to Sora. This is when we see Sora unleash yet another special move, OV Drive, and this leads to his victory. So let's break this down. We've seen the kid in 2 episodes, and he's created 2 special moves. That's a 100% new special move rate per episode, which is just crazy. But after that, he meets his hero Jinga, and that's it. That's the last we really see of Sora. At this point, I'd say he's on the level of a low-tier Battle Bladers character. So nothing special right now, but he's still kind of a beginner, yet he has 2 powerful special moves. If he just trained and focused on controlling that power and getting better with the fundamentals, he'd have made Battle Bladers. I mean, the fact that he's improved so much so quickly has me wondering how strong he was by Metal Fury. But unfortunately, we don't get to see that. We do, however, see him in Metal Masters. He doesn't do much, he doesn't even have a speaking role, but he's there at the Japanese selection tournament for the World Championships. We don't see any of his battles, but we still know that he's improved so much. We know this because he finished 7th out of the entire country of Japan. And the way this tournament works, you have to battle as many people as possible within the time limit to rack up points. We know Sora's improved because the Sora we saw in Metal Fusion wouldn't have been able to rack up this many points so quickly. The Sora from Metal Fusion would have won a few matches, but he wasn't strong enough to end them quickly to rack up points. So yeah, we know Sora's a bit stronger, but that's it. This is kind of where it ends for Sora. In Metal Fury, he gives Jinga his power, and in Zero G, he's seen hanging out with Ryuto and Tetsuya. Overall, Cyber has such a high power ceiling, and Sora has so much potential to become a top-tier blader. We only saw him battle when he was a beginner, but with more experience, he would have developed the fundamental skills which he lacked, and he would have increased the insane amount of power he already had. If Sora just developed normally as a blader, I seriously believe he'd be on the level of top-tier Metal Masters characters one day, and who knows, maybe he even gets to that Metal Fury level too. The kid just had so much raw power so early on, and if you ask me, he should have been the main character for the Zero G anime, but that's a whole nother video. I mean, seriously, in terms of next generation characters, Sora seems like the perfect candidate for the next Jinga. But unfortunately, he was only around for 2 episodes. I think the real reason for this is because he was just thrown into the anime to advertise the DS game. Realistically, the writers probably had no plans of including him otherwise, so they just threw him into a few low-stake episodes because of the video game. So I guess if we think about it, we're kind of lucky we got Sora for even 2 episodes. But hey, at least in the manga, he made Battle Bladers, and I think I heard some people say he returned in Metal Masters. I haven't read up to that part. But yeah, overall, Sora was a really cool character with so much potential. The amount of power he put on display while being a complete beginner is just crazy. It seriously makes you think maybe just all Pegasus Beyblades have crazy potential. But if that's the case, you start to wonder, where did Sora get Cyber Pegasus? But that's going to be the video. Thank you so much for watching. Comment down below what videos you want to see next, and I'll see you in the next video.